The desert stretched endlessly under the harsh sun, waves of heat distorting the horizon. Every step seemed heavier than the last, the sand burning beneath her worn boots. She was a young woman, traveling far from home with nothing but a satchel of supplies and a heart full of courage. The stories she had heard of the desert were terrifying: shifting sands hiding treacherous ravines, scorching days, freezing nights, and predators of all kinds. But nothing had prepared her for the sight she would stumble upon. A man sprawled across the dunes, motionless, his skin scorched and his clothing torn. At first she thought he might be dead, but a faint groan pierced the stillness, a cry for help that shook her to her core. He was a native warrior, recognizable by the patterns painted on his arms, a symbol of the tribe he belonged to, a people often misunderstood by the nations surrounding them. The woman hesitated only a moment before rushing to his side, kneeling in the sand to press her hands to his chest, feeling the faint heartbeat that told her he still clung to life. The warrior's eyes fluttered open, clouded with pain and confusion. He tried to speak, but only a raspy whisper emerged. She listened intently, trying to decipher his words. Despite the language barrier, they communicated in gestures and expressions, a silent understanding forming between them. She cleaned his wounds with water from her canteen, wrapped torn fabric around his bleeding arm, and guided him to a shaded rock formation to rest. With every movement, she risked sunstroke, sand inhalation, and the constant threat of predators. But she could not abandon him. Her hands, though small and delicate, carried the urgency of life itself. For hours, she stayed by his side, encouraging him, sharing sips of water, murmuring comfort in a language he might not fully understand. But the tone alone conveyed compassion. The desert wind whipped around them, carrying grains of sand that felt like shards, yet neither moved from their fragile sanctuary. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, the desert took on a haunting glow, red, orange, and gold streaks painting the sky. The warrior's strength had not returned, but his gratitude was evident. He tried to rise only to collapse against her supportive hands. She realized that alone she could not guide him far. She began scanning the landscape, searching for any sign of civilization or a safe haven. In the distance, she spotted what appeared to be a caravan route, a faint trail winding through rocky formations. She knew that if they could reach it, they might encounter traders or other travelers who could assist them. Each step was painstaking, each movement calculated, but she refused to yield. Every moment mattered. The desert was unforgiving, and even a single mistake could mean death. As they moved along the narrow trail, the warrior slowly began to communicate, revealing through broken phrases and gestures a story of a skirmish. His tribe had been ambushed by forces seeking to claim their land, a conflict that had escalated tensions between nations. He was a key figure in the negotiations, a warrior who carried not just a sword, but the hopes of his people for peace. Now, wounded and vulnerable, he relied entirely on the young woman who had discovered him. They formed a bond, fragile but steadfast, as they navigated the jagged rocks and dunes. Her determination inspired him to endure the pain. His presence reminded her of the stakes beyond survival. Together, they became a single force, moving toward a goal that neither fully understood, yet instinctively trusted. By nightfall, the desert transformed into a realm of shadows and chill. The cold was relentless, biting through their clothing, but they sheltered beside a jagged outcrop. The woman used her scarf and blankets to cover the warrior, offering what little warmth she could provide. They shared a meager meal, scavenged from her pack, speaking in gestures and expressions that transcended language. The warrior finally managed to convey his name and the name of his tribe, each syllable carrying history, culture, and the weight of responsibility. She realized that the man before her was more than a wounded fighter. He was a bridge between two nations, a living embodiment of diplomacy, honor, and bravery. Every glance, every nod between them reinforced trust, and she began to comprehend the magnitude of what lay ahead if they could survive the night. As dawn broke, casting pale light across the desert, they resumed their journey. Each step was agonizing for the warrior, but he refused to be carried entirely. The woman supported him, but she insisted he walk as much as he could. Together, they encountered natural obstacles, sandstorms, loose cliffs, and sudden drops that could prove fatal. Each time they paused, she reminded him of his mission, urging him to endure, while he instilled in her the knowledge of survival, the sacred ways his people had learned from centuries of living in the harsh land. Their collaboration became a delicate dance between strength and care, pain and resilience, survival and purpose. It was not just a journey of miles, but a journey of trust, courage, and understanding. Finally, in the late afternoon, they sighted a small village at the edge of the desert. It was a neutral territory, a haven for travelers, traders, and messengers. Relief flooded them both, but danger remained. Enemies could still be tracking the warrior. She helped him approach cautiously, keeping him low and hidden until they were within reach of the village's protection. The villagers, recognizing the warrior's status, quickly offered aid, medical attention, food, and a place to rest. He began to regain his strength, and as he recovered, he began speaking with elders and emissaries who understood the delicate balance between the nations at stake. The woman watched silently, her heart swelling with pride, knowing that without her intervention, this crucial moment might never have occurred. Word of their survival and the woman's bravery spread quickly. The warrior insisted she be recognized, telling leaders that her courage and quick thinking had preserved not only his life, but the fragile peace that hung between nations. He spoke eloquently about the trust that had formed between them and how it symbolized the possibility of unity, compassion, and shared humanity even amidst conflict. She had acted without thought of recognition or reward, yet her actions now held monumental significance. The nations involved took notice, realizing that diplomacy often began with human connection, empathy, and courage, rather than treaties and armies. Her small act had sparked a series of events that would ripple far beyond the desert. In the weeks that followed, negotiations between the two nations intensified. The warrior, now fully recovered, used the story of their survival as a metaphor for cooperation, trust, and reconciliation. The woman accompanied him to meetings as a silent witness, sometimes offering insight based on her perspective of their perilous journey. Leaders began to see beyond borders and prejudices, understanding that the choices of one person could alter the course of history. Her influence, though subtle, became undeniable. Nations that had once eyed each other with suspicion found common ground, inspired by the bond forged in the unforgiving desert. It was a testament to the power of compassion, courage, and unexpected alliances. Eventually, the woman returned to her home, forever changed. She carried with her the respect and gratitude of a warrior and his people, a tale that would be recounted for generations. The warrior maintained correspondence, updates on diplomatic efforts, and messages of appreciation. Together, they had shifted perceptions, proving that empathy and bravery could bridge even the widest divides. The desert, once a landscape of peril and isolation, had become the crucible in which two lives intertwined, creating a force that would alter the destiny of nations. The woman reflected on the journey, realizing that heroism often emerged in moments when one chose to act, even when the odds seemed insurmountable. Years later, the story became legend. Songs and stories told of the young woman who found a wounded warrior and helped him survive, of how their actions led to peace talks, treaties, and cultural exchange programs between nations previously locked in conflict. Statues, murals, and written histories honored both the warrior and the woman. Yet the woman remained humble, insisting that she had only done what anyone would do in the moment of need. But historians, leaders, and citizens alike understood that small acts of courage often have monumental consequences, and that the desert had borne witness to a moment where humanity triumphed over division and fear. The desert itself seemed to hold their story, etched into its dunes and wind-blown rocks. Travelers passing through would hear whispers of the warrior and the woman, of how two strangers meeting in a place of isolation and danger had redirected the currents of history. She had found him, yes, but more importantly, she had recognized the potential for greatness in a single act of courage. Their partnership became a symbol, even in a harsh, unforgiving world. Compassion, bravery, and trust could unite people and change nations. The desert, once silent and indifferent, had become a place of remembrance, hope, and inspiration, a testament to the extraordinary power that one person's heart can hold. As word of their desert journey spread, diplomats and emissaries requested to meet the young woman. Though she had acted out of instinct and compassion, she found herself facing leaders who sought to understand the courage that had preserved not only a life, but the fragile balance between nations. Sitting quietly in grand halls adorned with tapestries and relics,